Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Banter, Rants, and Bullshit. Yes, that's right. We have changed name. This is it now. Deal with it. But, as ever, I think you ought to know our sponsor is Goidcoin. Goidcoin. This is it. Last chance. Buy it now, or the world will come to a crashing end. Oh, yours, Doku.
So, I ran across something, and yes, this is impromptu, and yes, I did drag Jensen into this lovely poo-poo show. Yeah, we gotta get that. We gotta get that 5 minutes in, so the YouTube algorithm likes us.
Oh, are you saying it's a crap show?
Does crap technically qualify as a curse word?
No, it's not a curse word after all. It's well known what crap stands for.
Oh God, Jensen.
Yes, I've already derailed you.
It didn't take long, did it?
Nope.
And good morning, Sean. So yes, I am tracking Jensen into this wonderful, wonderful world that we live in. Up is down, left is right, good is bad, lies are truth. And jokes are serious, and serious things are jokes.
Didn't they make a book about that? 1984, wasn't it?
I think they did. I vaguely remember reading it in high school. I think. We already have the Ministry of Truth. I mean, we're well on the way to our Orwellian dystopian future. It's not stopping. It's going full bore. Just look at Australia. Those poor sons of guns. And trying to get to that 5-minute mark, it's really difficult.
It's not easy, is it?
It really isn't. When you start consciously thinking about, like, okay, I have to be family friendly because the YouTube algorithm doesn't like adult talk, I guess. Everybody must be treated with kid gloves according to the Ministry of Truth, aka YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. More specifically, Google, Apple, and Amazon. Crap. We're probably already got red flag for that one. How dare you speak the truth, says the Ministry of Truth.
Yeah. There you go, Sean. That's what crap means. And it's legal.
Oh, hello, MC. Again, we're just trying to get to that 5-minute mark. So if anybody wants to let me know in the chat, once we pass that glorious family-friendly 5-minute mark, I can really get down to the meat and potatoes.
The point where we're not going to say anything bad until 5 minutes and 1 second? I don't know what you mean. Nobody would ever do that. I mean, that would be naughty of them, wouldn't it?
Indeed it would. You know, this is actually a complete side point, but I've never thought about it from this context. What if the reason the YouTube algorithm wants you to be family friendly for the first 5 minutes is because statistically, on average, children have an attention span of 5 minutes or less?
This is true. This is possible. And by the way, just in case YouTube is actually thinking of putting adverts in this, dead babies. There you go. That should stop them putting adverts in it.
So you and MC are just in a race to figure out who can get banned first.
I accept your challenge.
We have to make it till December.
Okay, sure.
I don't know if we will, but
not if I can help. We won't.
Why? I think MC also accepts the challenge.
Yeah, no, this is a problem. You are winning, but don't worry. I'm still here, and things could and will go worse as I go. But I'm not going to do the Sudoku. I'm going to make sure that he gets his opportunity to say what he needs to, and this way he can unleash his inner beast and say everything that you'd ever wanted. Notice me wasting time, and off you go, mate. All yours.
Are we past our family-friendly mark?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, that's fucking delightful. Thank fucking God. Jesus Christ, that was annoying to try to get through. Fuck you, YouTube. God damn, I hate that shit. All right, now we can get into fucking adult time real quick, because holy fuck, this is glorious. I fucking love this. I mean, when I said up is down, left is right, lies are truth, truth are lies, and we live in fucking clown world where the joke's a reality and reality is a fucking joke, I was not fucking kidding, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just go ahead and give you the full fucking frontal. Let me just go in raw dog. No fucking condom, no fucking antibiotics. Just, yeah, worry about the coof all you fucking want. It doesn't fucking matter, because guess what? You're gonna end up pregnant with this shit to begin with anyways. So I'm just gonna share a screen with you just to fucking bring everybody on speed, up to par.
Oh, you're talking about that. Oh, this is gonna be glorious.
Oh yeah, this is great. This is fucking amazing. I love this. If you didn't read the fucking title of the channel, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, yes, everything is racist. It will be racist. It will always be racist, and you will fucking shut up and like it, you racist son of a bitch.
One moment. Hey, Laszlo.
Hey, how's it going?
All right, man.
How's it going?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, you got a mic. Good. We can hear
Yeah.
you now, hopefully.
Yeah,
How's it going, geezer?
Oh, good. Let me try to get my avatar to the correct one.
Yep, you do you, mate. Doku is going to unleash hell, so I just hope you're willing to talk. And remember, this is a free speech zone. You may say anything you want. And I said it in that tone very literally.
Well, I'm not going to say anything, but you know.
Oh, you should.
I mean, I could say a lot of things, but
dude, we have this channel has had people on it that they greet people with "Hey, N-word." Okay, you would be hard pressed to get us in trouble, and if you do, it just means that I'd be winning. So knock yourself out, buddy. Seriously, he's the one that's setting the timeline of surviving till Christmas. Me, I'm good.
I have a reason for it, and you damn well know it. But
yeah, I know, but it's funny.
Yeah, but Laszlo, thank you for joining us. So since you're here, what do you think about this? I wanted to save sending out a tweet just so I can share with everybody. If I'm going to be miserable, well, actually, I take that back. I'm not really miserable about this. I'm actually laughing because, damn it, the jokes write themselves. It's supposed to be a joke, but fuck, here we are.
Okay, so I've done 2 videos on this today and yesterday, and then I also have done numerous videos on Chicago and the violence there. And I'm gonna equate both of them here in a second. So when Joy Reid came out and said, "Oh, it's a white women's syndrome," I'm like, she's about 5% correct, 95% extremely wrong. She has a huge platform on MSNBC. MSNBC is a huge media platform. Why aren't they in the trenches in Chicago broadcasting the clarion call of all the violence and deaths in Chicago over the last 30 years? My hypothesis is that it's expected. We expect black on black violence. We expect the violence in the inner city, so no one gives a crap anymore. So when something like a script from LMN or the first 48 comes upon us, like with Gabby Petito, of course the media is going to latch onto it because it's a pretty blonde chick. The white dude, he comes back and she's missing for 11 days. But I asked Joy Reid, it's like, you're caring about this and you equate it to racism. Okay, you may be 5% correct. But what about Chicago? Why aren't you talking about that? You have a big platform. Get out there in the trenches. Talk about it. Maybe you might do something good. Nah, she's too busy for that because she's a racist bigot. In the story.
Well, it's funny because I was reading through before deciding to bug Jensen to do this stream. I was reading through some of the comments and, specifically the trending page. And you'll see a lot of people saying like, oh, well, missing white woman syndrome is indeed a thing. And anybody who goes missing or has harm come to them should be treated with concern. But I'd like to see this same energy when a person of color or a woman of color, basically anybody who isn't white, I'd like to see that same energy when something bad happens to them. Well, okay, let me break it down for you, Buttercup, real quick. First off, you guys had a year of riots over any terrible thing that happened to anybody who was a person of color, whether they deserved it or not, is irrelevant. You'd riot no matter what. So I think you got plenty of energy behind you right there. But also at the same time, anytime somebody tries to point out, well, maybe we should actually start focusing on, I don't know, issues about black on black crime, glorifying, gang culture, violence against women, violence against other, against other men. Specifically, it usually tends to be people of color, to use their term. Maybe we should start trying to talk about that. Maybe look at the crime rate in Chicago. Maybe look at the crime rate in areas that are statistically low income. As much as you guys love to bring up rednecks, the crime rate in hillbilly Beaufuck nowhere isn't nearly as bad as urban areas that are largely populated by Black and Hispanic people. But as soon as you try to bring that up, oh my God, you racist bigot! How dare you point out statistical facts? Well, aren't you the guys that are now saying like that this is a problem? We should talk about it, but also it doesn't fit the narrative because fuck you, whitey. So we shouldn't talk about it because racism is bad. But also let me be racist. Like, you see what I mean about clown world? Up is down, left and right.
Well, yeah. When you try to actually parse through the data and try to actually come to a logical conclusion, you just can't, because it's always, oh, how dare you talk about it? You're racist. It's like, well, most of the violence in the inner cities is, well, FBI crime stats is, I'm not going to say it, but all you have to do is kind of look through that data and you can come to your own conclusion. So when you look at why we know who Gabby Petito is and Brian Laundrie, who her fiance is because the media told us. Every weekend, between 9 and 15 people are shot and killed in Chicago. Do we know their names? No. Why? Well, because the media doesn't tell us. You can actually find their names. It's a little harder to do. You can find it. The problem is that these people in the media don't care. If they really cared, they'd be down on the streets right now going through it and go, why did a tow truck driver this last weekend just get shot out of the blue? Why?
Well,
I don't know.
See, that's part of the reason though, is like, yes, we'll kind of like mention these types of problems in passing, and ironically enough, it's mostly conservatives who are looking at this, not the left, because their agenda is based in racism, regardless if they say they're against it or not. No, they actually profit from it. They profit by propagating racism. So yeah, you can have 56 people shot over a weekend in Chicago, and every single victim can be Black. A tenth of them could be children. The media doesn't care. As soon as you try to bring it up, because anyone with any sense of empathy would look at this and go, "This is a problem. Maybe we should talk about this." Like, I don't want to see people get shot. I don't want to see kids get killed. I don't want to see the cities crumbling and devolve into crime-ridden hellholes. I don't think anybody would. But as soon as you try to bring it up, it's usually the right saying, "Hey, look, this is a problem." But you look at the left and they propagate these issues. Like,
of course you do. Think about this. Lori Lightfoot's new plan to stop violence in the city. Have you heard of what she wants to do?
Oh, yes.
I haven't, but real quick, just before you go down this rabbit hole, you guys see the tweet I'm about to send? Does anybody have any issues with this? Because if not, I'm going to go ahead and just, drop that little...
You're good.
Yeah, let's just... I'm going to cast the line. Let's see how big of a fish I can hook.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
So obviously Jensen knows, but I think you haven't heard about it. So essentially it's like this. And she got this idea from happening in other cities where they decide they're going to sue specific gang members and gangs in Chicago for the violence. Now, there's a couple problems with that. One, how can you sue somebody that hasn't proved to be a contributor to that specific violence or death? You can't do it. So the whole idea behind, we're going to sue gang members individually for the violence they, quote unquote, may or may not have perpetrated, it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous because, first off, You're telling me you're going to sue the criminals, the ones that should be locked up already and not on the streets committing crimes. Oh, well, brilliant. Very progressive strategy there, Lori Lightfoot. But strangely enough, it's not as bad as trying to pay people money not to kill people like the city of San Francisco is trying to do. Or was that LA? It's one of the two.
I can't remember. That was glorious as well.
It's a blue city. It doesn't matter.
But it is insane. So this is kind of the point I want to bring up. So I guess more into the meat and potatoes of the issue. When you look at inner cities, when you look at large urban populations, specifically ones that have high crime rates, and a lot of people say like, oh, well, the city of insert city here, and 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a blue city. Well, the city overall is fine, except, yeah, there's good areas and bad areas. Let's look at the demographics and look at the crime rates, considering what the good areas and bad areas are. Let's look at which ones are residential. Let's look at which ones are business. Let's look at which ones are essentially tourist traps. And what you'll find statistically, even in blue cities, mostly in blue cities actually, is that the areas with the highest crime rate are the lowest income, and they tend to be ethnic areas. Hey, even Chinatown. Sorry, Asians. I know you guys have a higher IQ than most white people, but you're not exempt from this one because your high IQ doesn't save you from the fact that you live next door to an area that's probably high crime rate. Look at any Chinatown, Koreatown, Little Korea, Little Vietnam, whatever you want to call it, and look at where those areas are located. You know what you won't find? All these rich, elitist, mostly white liberals who complain about racism and income inequality and all this and that, live in extremely expensive, extremely affluent, and mostly white neighborhoods. The only way you can actually find a demographic that is low income with a high crime rate, that is majority white, is if you go outside of any large urban population center. Even in the areas that consider like, oh, well, this is a city, you'll still find you're talking about the bohunks of that city. Like, I can say, I live in this county, but I'm on the outskirts of it. I'm basically in the fucking country. And where the majority of that crime comes from is mostly drug related. It's usually not gang related. You don't see roving bands of motorcycle gangs going around in, Beaufuck nowhere, Indiana, robbing people randomly or just randomly shooting people. Like, you just don't see that. Like, yeah, you're going to see crime, but it's a completely different flavor of crime compared to what you're going to see in an urban area that is largely ethnic in downtown Chicago or downtown New York or downtown LA. I mean, and this is not me saying that I'm not trying to make this argument to be racist. I'm just giving you the facts, like the statistical facts. And a lot of this is a cultural issue. And it's odd because when conservatives actually try to bring this up and like, look, you're glorifying gang culture. You see it in music. You see it in television. You see it on the streets. And there's a large degree of broken families, large degree of incarceration, large degree of imprisonment. And to be blunt, a well-established gang culture that goes back not just years or decades, but generations. And this is an issue that needs to be talked about and addressed. But God forbid you bring it up, because if you do, the media comes out and smears you and slams you like you're some sort of incredible racist. When it's in reality, no, I'm not. What I see is a problem that needs to be talked about, that needs to be addressed. I mean, it's like Gangster's Paradise. Gangster's Paradise, if you listen to the lyrics of the song, is a warning against gang culture and trying to glorify what the inner city ghetto type of gang culture actually is. It's not a Prince Charming saves the princess type of story. It's a very dark story when you look at the lyrics. But again, the left does not want you to bring up this issue because they profit from it. And that is my core point behind this. Is the left, despite what they say about wanting to solve income inequality, wanting to solve gang violence, wanting to end racism, this and that, no, they don't. They're lying to your face. They profit off of this. They want to propagate it. And as soon as you actually try to do something productive, as soon as you actually try to do something to solve the problem, it's sort of like every single fucking president before Trump says, we're going to secure the border. We're going to secure the border. But the second you actually do something about it, all of a sudden you're xenophobic and racist. They profit from the problem. They don't want to fix it.
Take a breath. So if you wanted to change your picture, search your icon. If you look under the thing where it says your name, you'll see 3 dots. Click on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you will see it's got the various edits and stuff. I believe it's got one for editing your icon.
I think it's not the right
avatar.
pixel length. I think that's the problem.
Okay, that's a bit of a bugger. Sorry, dude. That's the only way I know to do it. Just trying to help you out.
Oh, it's
Okay, Doku, knock yourself out, mate. I just wanted to say that to him.
Oh no, actually, that was ironically enough good timing because that was my whole point. I guess just to recap, the people that claim they're against racism, the people that claim they're against income inequality, the people that claim it, they're not. They actually profit from it. They want to propagate it, and they want to create division because that's what sells. The news media does not get clicks for saying, "Hey, this person saved a puppy dog, or saved a kitten from a tree, and a little white boy and a little black boy hugged on the street today, and everything is sunshine and rainbows." That doesn't sell.
No. Now, CSG, your concept is actually perfectly reasonable. The idea is good, except for one problem. These gang people are likely to go, no, what are you going to do? Arrest us? Well, if you're going to arrest them for that, why not arrest them for, I don't know, the crimes that they're actually being accused of that you're going and taking the money for? I'm not disagreeing with you, mate, and I could well be wrong. If you can tell me where I'm wrong, please do. But it does kind of sound like a sticky tape over a breach in the dam more than a repair of said dam. Okay. Said what I wanted to.
No, there's what Doku was saying was I'm 100% correct. It's just they say they want to stop or fix all these problems, and it goes to the point to where does the medical pharmaceutical industry really and truly want to solve or have a cure for cancer or AIDS? Not really, because the money is in the treatment and money is in the vaccines to keep pumping out every year, especially with the flu vaccine. The flu has been what 120, 100, actually 100. Let's see, 108 years old, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Every year you get a flu vaccine, or ever since I think what 1950, we get a
All
flu shot,
right. Mm-hmm.
something like that. Okay, fine. So they haven't figured it out yet. That just seems kind of weird that they figured out polio, they figured out these other communicable diseases, either from other humans or other vectors such as mosquitoes and other insects. They haven't figured that out yet. Okay, fine, whatever. Okay, I get it. But then when other things pop up, they're they really haven't they really haven't figured out a way to stop other viruses out there. I think I might be. Don't get me wrong. Don't pin me down on this, but I think it was the chicken pox. There's actually a vaccine for it now. I think my son got it, but I don't know if that's true or not. That's the last, legitimate. I remember when I was a kid, they would send you to another your friend's house who's got chickenpox, so you would get it that summer, so you wouldn't get infected during the your school year. They would have like chickenpox parties. I think that's what they're called.
Yep.
Are we now? We can't figure this out. There's no. Oh, we can't figure. Medical science is, you know, is totally. We just. Oh, sorry. We need more money. For what? And that's the same with the liberals. It's like, how much more money do you guys need to figure out how to stop gang violence in Chicago? More. How much more? More. That's not a number. More.
Mm-hmm.
Any number that you could give out there could actually solve that problem. And what Doku was saying, it is a 100% cultural issue. How do you stop that? I don't know. And the only conclusion I have to actually stop the violence in inner cities, and the only one that I can think of is with force, send the National Guard in. But that's not really going to solve anything. But at this point, I don't have a good solution for it. It's either that or we just let it continue to happen and fester.
I have a few points I want to touch on. The first one, and this is just kind of more of a side story. Ironically enough, this happened in Chicago. I was at a bar talking to someone, and take it with a grain of salt because it's just a story exchanged over drinks at a bar. But this guy was saying that his uncle, or great uncle, I believe, actually, had actually found a cure for gonorrhea. Like, not a treatment, a cure. Like, you got it. Here's a shot. Here's a pill. Like, you're good. You're cleared. And this apparently happened back in the 60s or 70s. And now there is one. But at the time, what happened is that the FDA came in and put a bunch of red tape around it. And it's like, well, you have to go through this trial, this trial, this trial. And they passed all the trials. And then they still denied it, even though there were clinical peer-reviewed trials. And then he ended up getting sued by a pharmaceutical company. And they essentially took the patent. And then later down the road, that became one of their treatments for a number of STDs. And so things like that happen. So that's just one point. But and again, take that one with a grain of salt. So that being said, what Laszlo is saying is indeed correct. And honestly, I think the issue, like, it's not something that you can actually solve with force. We as human beings don't respond to force or authority very well. It's kind of the common trope of, you tell me to do something and I'm going to do the exact opposite just to spite you. And it's a visceral reaction. It's not a logical or intelligent one, but it's human nature. And pulling on that thread, if you really want to solve this issue, and I'm not saying you have to be staunchly religious or, white picket fence Christian or anything like that, but if you really want to solve this issue, honestly, you're gonna have to start with the family unit. You're gonna have to start with a structured society that is not reliant or contingent upon government, but parents teaching their kids, this is how you treat other people. This is how you behave in a proper civilized society. Robbing people is not good. Shooting people is not good. You have to have some kind of moral, spine, some sort of moral ground or framework to actually work off of if you want to fix the problem.
One sec. According to MC, you are mad, Dodge. I mean, wrong.
MC, you can say I'm wrong all you want, but I'm going to humbly disagree. And I'm not sure what I'm exactly wrong about. So if you care to elaborate, let me know. But no, if you really want to solve this problem, it's two issues. First, it does start with some sort of moral framework. Don't join a gang. Don't rob people. Don't break the law. Don't be a criminal. And expounding upon that, don't glorify activities that are going to get you potentially arrested, which obviously breaks the family unit. This is a problem, especially with teen pregnancies and pregnancies amongst people who are not married. I'm not saying you have to be married, but when you have a guy going out and fuck as many hoes as possible and fuck bitches, get laid, get money, all that shit. Oh, guess what? Eventually, that type of culture leads to situations where more than likely you're probably going to find yourself either financially burdened because child support's a thing, and not to go down a penoid rant. I'm not going down that MGTOW thing, but child support is a thing. So yeah, you have to take responsibility for it. Well, it's a lot easier. And if you don't believe me, just look at the tax codes. Look at what you can be taxed on and look at what your income can be if you're married versus if you're single. You're financially, a family unit, religious stuff, all that aside, just being able to co-sign and co-report what your taxes are, you are financially better off being married than you are being single. It's just the truth.
From CSG, well, first of all, brace yourself because this is about to go downhill, and I'll be bringing you in very, very shortly, MC. I just want to read this to him first. Yes, Doku, these things do not already happen. I cannot believe I'm saying it, but MC is right. You are wrong, Doku. MC, first of all, hey, dude. Second, off you go, mate.
All right, so first off, I'm just going to finish my point real quick.
You have a point?
This is, MC, this is a cultural problem. And it's a cultural problem that is just, I'm not going to say distinct to certain ethnic minorities, but it's much more prevalent amongst ethnic minorities that live in urban areas. That is a statistical truth. The second point, yes, you are better off financially if you're married. Yes, you are. If you don't believe me, go look at the tax codes. I've been doing it for the past 5 fucking days trying to figure out where I'm going to move next because I want to find the most tax beneficial area for me. Yes, it is true. Final point. Yes, when you have this type of culture where people are more likely to be incarcerated, well, guess what? You're more likely to end up with a single family household. It's gonna fucking happen. More likely than not. And once you have that type of situation, guess what? Single family household, do you think the parent really has time to take care of the kid and teach the kid what is right or wrong? Especially if you live in an area where gang culture is already a thing. What do you think the likelihood that this kid is going to grow up on the quote, quote, streets and get involved in criminal activities, thus perpetrating the problem even further? Tell me where I'm wrong.
Before you do wreck face, MC, Doku, I absolutely love that place in Tennessee, the picture you showed. Absolutely fucking amazing. I love it. Okay, MC, go for it, mate.
What do you mean that? What do you mean violence doesn't work? Doesn't work?
Oh, I'm not. So, okay, I'll elaborate on that. What I'm saying is that if you try to force people into something, you might solve the problem temporarily, but you don't solve the core issue. That's
sure
my
you do. You can. Depends on how long you apply and how much force you apply. The idea that you cannot change a culture via force is stupid. In fact, that's how societies always change. The problem that you're seeing right now is the exact inverse of that, where because of the violence in the inner cities, because of the violence in these areas, it isn't getting better; it's spreading because no one's putting a stop to it. The idea that violence, the idea that force, the idea that you can just sit back and it's all going to go away, all right, or that there's all these other methods to apply. Yeah, it all sounds good, but that is not the way humanity works. And if you don't believe me, all you got to do is take a look at how we handled World War II and what we did after World War II, where we sit up there and took over these areas. I mean, really took over these areas, where we told people where you will live, all right, where you will sleep, where you will work, what you will be doing from day in and day out for several decades, and then said finally, okay, you're acting reasonably.
MC, I don't necessarily disagree with you. This is going to sound like semantics because it is. What you're talking about now is subjugation. And I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, subjugation works. It very much does work. I'm trying to approach things from how do you change the culture? I'm trying to be a memes here in the situation. I'm trying to be slightly more reasonable. But
now, I want you to sit up there and say, how was I wrong? And match that to the fact I was trying to be memes.
Again, MC, I'm trying to find a more reasonable solution than subjugation. But honestly, in a lot of and the thing is, though, in a lot of these inner cities where these crimes or these cultural problems exist, they're, like I was saying earlier, they are generational, and it is ingrained in the culture at this point in time. That's why somebody can become a fucking millionaire or billionaire rapping about it. It is a generational cultural aspect that is not a productive or a good one unless you happen to be, again, one of the few lucky ones that ends up becoming a millionaire rapping about it and didn't get shot or locked up because of the experiences that you had. In a lot of these instances, subjugation might be the only actual recourse. But obviously, if you try to do that, well, people like Joy Reid are going to go off their fucking rocker like, oh my God, we live in a racist police state. It's like, well, you guys are shooting each other anyways, and we're stopping you from shooting each other. So which is better? Do you want to live in a crime-ridden hellhole, or do you want to be subjugated and live under the rule of law? I'm not sure which answer is the correct one, but it's looking like those are your options.
It's not a matter of correct or not correct in that regard. It's a matter of whether or not where you want it to go. You can change society. Society's changed through force, whether that force is internal or whether that force is external. And it doesn't, when I say force, it doesn't necessarily mean violence. All right. But I do mean coercion to some degree. All right. Now, how fast the society changes depends on the pressure that's being applied and the length of time that pressure is applied. One of the problems when you talk about the lack of two-parent homes and so forth within the African American community, whether you like it or not, the vast majority of that isn't due to the fact that people are criminals. All right. The reality is that came about due to, quite frankly, the destruction created by welfare more than any other thing. If you take a look at the welfare families of white people and the welfare families of black people, all right, and look down that lane of the ones that are trapped in welfare, you're not going to see any difference from a marital standpoint between the blacks and the whites, all right? But if you sit up there and say, okay, the people who got on welfare and immediately got off and never went back versus the people who stayed on welfare and it became generational. Sure, you had something that applied. It's called money. You threw some money at a problem. All right. You said, okay, well, we'll just let this go because we're trying to change society. Okay, you changed society. Society did change around you, not in the good way. It changed in a bad way. Well, how are you going to fix that? Now, common sense says if you did something and you got a negative result, you stop doing it. But see, now people whine and cry about, oh, but that'll cause problems. Oh, people have become dependent. Okay, I understand that. How do they become independent? Giving them a cookie?
Okay. Oh, and I'm glad you actually brought that point up because it is what one of my key issues is crime a problem? Yes, it is. And obviously that when you have higher crime rates, yes, you're going to end up with more single family households, but you could boil that down easily to financial problems. Let's be perfectly blunt. Society runs on money. Now, if you're reliant upon government, things like welfare, you don't necessarily have an incentive to do anything other than make sure that welfare check keeps coming in. It doesn't lead to any type of upward mobility. If you have two people who are financially independent that don't need to be reliant upon government, don't need to be reliant upon welfare, those people will not only generally have lower crime rates, statistical fact, go look it up. Not only is the crime rate lower, but they have better upward mobility. Those areas where people are financially independent have also statistically lower crime rates. The areas that have high crime rates are usually rather low income and they have higher rates of welfare. Welfare doesn't help people.
But the reason for that is because people will leave the crime-ridden areas once they get wealth.
And that's what I mean about upward mobility.
Well, it's when we talk about upward mobility, unfortunately, the problem is you and I refer to it. It's going to be completely different than the way Jensen and CSG see it, because to them, upward mobility is a social dynamic. For us, it's a monetary dynamic. Okay. This is one of the big differences between how we approach things in the U.S. versus how we don't approach things. All right. The problem when we're talking about these issues, if you want society to change, if you're trying to change the dynamic, one of the biggest changes in dynamics in our society is if you go back to the 1930s, okay, people that took welfare did everything they could to prevent somebody else from even knowing that their family had ever been on welfare.
Oh, yeah.
Do you see that today? No, it's not a problem. Why? Because there's been a change in society. There's been a change in the stigma, all right, that was applied to welfare. Okay, for whether you consider that good or whether you consider it evil, you have to recognize that there was a societal change as a result. Now, you can argue like I do that that's a bad thing. You can argue and say, hey, what we did is replace these people's attitudes of I need to be self-reliant. My goal is to always be self-reliant. I need to sacrifice and I need to self-discipline myself so that I can gain that self-reliance. Okay. Or you can sit up and go, what's a good thing? Because we're no longer stigmatizing the poor people now. And the poor people, they don't have to feel as bad about themselves. Okay. That's one of the problems that we got in a fat society that we have today. And I'm not talking physically fat like my little Billy here. I'm talking about our society is so wealthy. Okay. These people don't have to work. Whether you like it or not, in America, let's be perfectly blunt. I could easily, if I decided not to work myself, just me, not worried about my family. If I just said no to hell with all of them, and I throw away all those things, could I live without ever working another day of my life and just doing whatever the hell I felt like? Well, yeah, pretty much. Now, would I be able to do some of the things that I would like to be able to do? Well, no, but that's reality. I can't do a lot of the things that I would like to be able to do. I like to be able to dunk a basketball standing at the free throw line. That's never going to happen. All right, being 5'6.5", that is not going to happen. All right, no matter how much I wish for it, and it's no matter how much you want to wish for how these societies are going to change. If you're wishing for there to be some easy solution, all right. There's not an easy solution. There's simple ones, but there's not an easy one. And one of the simplest ones is to sit up there and look at people like Joey Reed and look at these other people and call them what they are, racist bigots, straight to their face. Laszlo's not wrong. He's exactly right. These people are bigots, and it's their bigotry that is extending this. It's their bigotry that is making them, and of course they're bigots because they're leftists. And being a leftist is the home of bigotry. Always has been. Why? Because it makes you comfortable with your failings.
Just
according to Candid, MC doesn't have a good ball game is what I'm taking from this. Thank you for that insight, Candid. But MC, you did bring up something that this is a bit of a side, but it's essentially making your point. If you go around the United States right now and you look at the service industry, specifically restaurants, you'll find there's a lot of for hires coming in. And if you talk to restaurant owners or managers, the problem they're finding is that people who essentially work for tips or were working below $15 an hour now get paid $15 or better being on unemployment. So they don't want to go back to work. That's the reason you see a lot of these help wanted signs coming out, is because the people who used to work there, they don't have an incentive to go back to work. And this is kind of the problem.
Just to interrupt everyone. Hey, CSG, how's it going, mate? Do carry on. Just want to say hello.
What's up, CSG? But yeah,
just not too much. I thought I'd talk to you very quickly.
Okay, yeah, I saw you. You said you didn't have a lot of time, so I'll just make this very brief. So yeah, when you give people an incentive to not work, guess what? A lot of people won't work. I'm not saying everybody. Some people still have that sense of pride. They want to do something, but incentivize people to not work. Guess what? They're gonna sit at home and watch Netflix and collect a welfare paycheck. I mean, why wouldn't they? It is what it is.
Well, that depends on how much that they actually want from life, though, doesn't it?
Like I said, there's some people who are going to say, like, "Well, I'm not just happy making 15
Well, it kind of depends on what they actually want from life, though.
Well, it does, but trust me, there's a lot of people in the United States who are more than happy to sit down and watch Netflix and collect $15 per hour.
Well, it's not that. It's a case of on certain.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, you there, CSG?
Yeah, I was going to say, did I do something wrong? Did I?
You went all quiet.
I'm traveling, so I may drop in and drop out.
Okay, no problem, mate.
Yeah, I may drop in and I may drop out. So if I go quiet all of a sudden, I probably died because I'm driving.
Okay. Try not to die.
Don't do that.
Apparently, that's a bad thing.
Yeah. Don't die on us, CSG. But anyways,
it'll be fine. It'll be great YouTube content, won't it? It'll be great YouTube content. I mean, somebody's already posted it, haven't they? Some Paul bloke or something.
Considering the quality of YouTube nowadays, you're probably not wrong on that one. I hate to admit.
You need the sirens blaring and everything else though ahead of time. You need to get a whole crowd, all right, in order to really get this going.
Live stream death.
I need to find some Antifa. I need to find Antifa somewhere. No, sorry.
Go to your local university.
Sorry, all I was going to say was.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, we don't have universities here, not really. We pretend to, but they're more glorified colleges. But shh. But no, all I was going to say was, with the idea of benefits and the incentivization of benefits, it really depends on what you want from life. Now, if you want something, as you said before, where you just want to sit at home on Netflix and get a paycheck that just gets you by, then fair enough. But a lot of people want to go on holidays. A lot of people want to be able to buy a car, want to be able to travel, want to be able to do something without having some sort of form of restriction placed upon them by another government agency or by other people. Now, again, I don't know what it's like for American and their benefits, but even for disability in the United Kingdom, we are always limited on what we can do, where we can go, how we can do it, and how much we can spend, what cars we can get, so on and so forth. So I imagine that there's a similar limit, maybe not the same, but similar limit on the benefit system in America, especially considering it's completely different to ours.
Unfortunately, CSG, you're kind of right, but you're also kind of wrong. And the best example I have is this. We do subsidize a lot of things for people who are essentially on a government paycheck. I'm not allowed to call them food stamps anymore because apparently that's insensitive, but you'll see people paying for lobster and steak using an EBT card. The government doesn't really look at it. So our welfare state is kind of backwards.
With things like disability, for example, depends upon, and this is the other thing, SSDI versus SSI. It depends on a number of factors, not the least of which is, all right, whether or not they're going to be handing you, they're going to pay for something, or whether or not they're going to hand you a check. Okay, there are disabilities where a person is handed a check, and of course it's just a check. It's money. They could spend it theoretically on whatever they wanted. There is no limit on what they can spend that for. All right.
Yeah, we have a similar benefit.
Enough. Okay. The other thing is there's certain things that the government will pay for per se, like medical bills. All right, when you talk about disability, generally a lot of the medical bills will get paid for, all right, by the government, but and all they see is a sheet of paper. They don't ever see the revenue from that. They're not the ones who are given the money to give to the other people. All right, it's just revenue. So it kind of depends in that regard. All right, but as far as them being able to say, okay, well, you're on like for example, Social Security, and you want to go visit your grandkids down the street, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. All right, and I'm not saying you didn't earn Social Security or anything else. I'm just using this as a program, for example, to explain it. When they talk about,
I don't actually disagree with anybody that's talking about benefits. By the way,
all right, I'm talking about.
I'm not actually disagreeing with anything that you guys have actually already said.
I was trying to explain this. I was trying to explain it. That's all. How these systems work. And it also will depend, quite frankly, on where that system is. Is it a federal system? Is it a state system? Is it a city system? Is it a county system? It depends on where it's coming from.
And also, we haven't heard from Laszlo here in a minute. So what's your take on this, dude?
I was just listening, and I wasn't really paying attention, but
no worries. We just hadn't heard from you, so I wanted to see if you had anything to
basically,
say.
I was just listening. If we're talking about welfare, I would just say flat out cut it off and see what happens.
I'll be perfectly honest. I wasn't actually talking about the aspect of not that anybody brought this up, but I wasn't actually talking about the aspect of welfare. Is it good or is it bad? It was a case of the incentivization that comes from it. That it really depends on whether or not people want to be incentivized or not. For instance, if you work at Tesco or say McDonald's, like you're limited on what you can and cannot do because of the
breaking up really badly.
Paycheck degree to be able to get a higher job. Okay. But that depends.
It's okay.
How far did I get?
I think I know where you're coming from. I think there should be a limit. The problem is that we're at a point to where, especially during the pandemic, we're just cutting checks. Like, for instance, I have one son, and we just got $220 in our bank account. I didn't want it because I know that eventually I'm going to have to pay it back to the government. I'm like, I'm financially sound. I don't need this money the government's giving me, because $220 in big scheme of things just means that's half a trip to the grocery store. And so why are they giving it to me? They should be giving it to somebody else that possibly needs it more than me. But that's not how it works. I just think that the point we're at now is that we're beyond the point to where a lot of this money that's going out, when I think Adoku was saying about EBT cards for steak and lobster, that's ridiculous. How about some food that actually has
to be clear, To be clear, before anybody starts talking about lobster towels and things like that, the EBT card covers everything to do with food. So because lobster towel is expensive, that doesn't mean that because it's expensive it gets paid. It's just a case of you're allowed that amount for shopping, for food. That's not that, oh, it's expensive. It's just covered as food.
Right, correct. I'm just saying that they should be buying, I don't know, something that would last longer, because lobster tail, it's pretty expensive per pound. Why wouldn't you buy like, a huge bag of white rice or something that may last, a couple months? And I get it. It's like, well, the government's giving me this money. I can use it for how I want to. I get it. But a lot of these people who are taking this money are, especially when they actually had a book of food stamps. I think, if I remember correctly, it was like this book was like bus tickets, and they would sell those to somebody that would take them. And so there's a lot of fraud going on. So now they actually have a card, like an ATM card, which
you can still cause fraud by EBT using the card. You just transfer the card over for that particular month, and people give you some money for it. Though I'm not American, but
right. But I think I'm going to boil this down. So I think what the bottom line is that at some point you can't exactly cut these people off, because they'll do what they did back in 2020. But then again, just keep stringing these people along isn't a solution either.
Oh, and so you touch on two very good points. The first one, and I believe I brought up the statistic before, but if you look at the bank loans versus bank deposits, it's usually a pretty good economic indicator. And after a lot of the stimulus checks went out, loans went down and deposits went up, which is, for the banks, not a good place to be in, because banks make their money off of loans. They need the interest, versus if people deposit money, they have to pay them interest on what money they're depositing. And so you end up with a twofold problem. So first off, you end up with a crack or two in the financial industry, because money's supposed to flow. It's not supposed to sit. That's not an economic benefit. So if you just hand everybody $1,400 regardless of their economic status, you're going to create problems, whether it's intentional or unintentional. Which brings me to the second and more pressing problem. And I don't know how it is over there in across the pond for you guys. But
you can call us Brit Bongland. It's fine. I know you want to.
All right. So I don't know how it is for you Brits, but here in the United States, we have, and I would say this is a really big cultural problem, is fiscal irresponsibility. People, like you said, EBT cards cover just general food costs. Well, most people will say, oh, the government's going to give me this much money. Well, I know the government's going to take care of me, so I don't necessarily care about having food for next month. I know I'm going to get a paycheck, so I'll use that excess money to go ahead and buy a lobster tail or a ribeye or sirloin, whatever. Fine, you do you, but it's not the most responsible decision. It's sort of like the same people who take their stimulus checks and they use it to buy a new flat screen TV, but they're assuming that they're not going to be evicted from their house, and they're not setting aside, okay, I have to pay this much money for rent, even though I'm not paying rent right now. Someone who's fiscally responsible is like, okay, let me put this into a high yield checking or savings account, make a little bit of interest off of it. And then when I actually do have to pay my rent, I'll just pay the principal in full. And oh, by the way, I get a little bit of extra cash from that interest payment. But most people don't think that way, because as a country, if people who are on welfare or people who are just getting stimulus checks, they expect the government to take care of them. It's like the same thing with student loan. They just expect like, $60,000 in debt. Well, they can't pay it off because they can't find a good job because they got a freaking degree in gender studies. Well, they expect the government to take care of them. It's this mindset that we facilitated in the United States where you expect somebody else to take care of you. And that doesn't work. It might work in the short term, like when you're really down on your luck, but it doesn't work in the long term.
Well,
and that's.
I would actually argue against that very, very quickly. I know MC wants to get in, but very, very quickly. I won't take long on this. I would actually argue against that, saying that all sounds like the idea of personal choice, that it's a case of I want to buy a TV now, even though I know that I need food next week. You could argue that that's the same thing for somebody that's working at McDonald's with somebody that's on benefits. If I know that I've got somewhere where my roommate may pay the rent this month and I can owe my roommates the money, then I can expend buy some stuff and do whatever I want for that month, knowing that somebody's going to cover it for me. That comes down to personal choice and personal responsibility, rather than it just being a government incentive.
I get what you're saying, CSG, and sorry, I just want to address it real quick, and then MC, I'm going to let you go. Yes, you're correct. It is personal choice, but when that person who used their check to say buy a lobster tail or doesn't have food the next month, or bought a big screen TV and all of a sudden now can't pay the rent and they're under threat of being evicted, so they look at a government entity, which is in the US taxpayer funded, to come and essentially bail them out for their own fiscal irresponsibility. That doesn't lead to a sound society. That doesn't lead to a fiscally stable society. Yes, it's your personal choice. You're free to make your own bad decisions and go bankrupt because of it. But I shouldn't be obliged to bail you out because you made a bad decision.
And that's where the problem comes into, because the problem that you're looking at, CSG, you're right. It is a personal decision, but from a societal point of view, there's nothing, all right, that is being applied to say, hey, that's a negative. There are no consequences for that behavior. There's no consequences being applied for that behavior, even from the standpoint of saying, oh, look at you, you're on welfare, that used to be applied. Within American society today, you can't look down on that person just because they're poor. Okay, I understand that. I get that point of view, right? However, if you take it to the extreme where the person is poor because of the decisions that they were making, okay, then what happens is they have no incentive. You've removed the incentive. You've removed the societal incentive to get ahead and to become more disciplined. When you talk about desire, these people would like to have the desire to go on a vacation. Sure, everybody would like to have that. There are things out there that are in common with a lot of people. If you walk over and go to the worst neighborhoods in America, and you pull aside the person there, and you say, would you like to sit up there and go on a trip to Europe? All right, they would all say, well, yeah, I'd kind of like to go on a trip to Europe, or I'd like to go visit the world, or I'd like to go visit that. Well, what do you do? And then turn around and go, well, what are you doing to make that happen? That's two different scenarios. The desire is only part of it. Desire can be a motivating factor, sure. But if you don't have the internal self-discipline to enact that desire or to actually go after that desire, it doesn't matter a hill of beans. It's just like if you don't believe you can get ahead because of the color of your skin, why even bother trying? It's not that you don't want to get ahead. It's that you don't see a point of applying yourself in that direction because you've got a mindset that says, I'm not going to make it anyway. Why should I bother?
Well, I disagree with that. Having the mindset of saying that I don't want to save money to be able to go across to Europe because I need to pay bills or because I want to drink myself into oblivion is completely different to thinking that I'm going to be persecuted for going out and getting a job. Now, you could argue that doesn't happen, but the mindsets are completely different.
But the one is being the difference is you want to sit up there and put everything down to an individual level, and we're talking about problems.
Oh, you know me very well, MC. No. You know me very well, MC. I do not put everything down to individual level. But what we're talking about is an individual level at the minute.
What we're talking about right now is a problem that affects all of society, and you're applying an individual.
No. You're talking about a select group of people within society that make personal decisions and choices based on circumstances within society. But that's not necessarily a societal issue. That's more to do with a personal issue that's within society.
I hate to tell you, but it is a societal issue because it isn't just a specific group of people. And the reason for it isn't just a specific group of people is that it's being paid for by all of society. The people that pay taxes, the people that are living up high on the hog versus the people that are just making ends meet, they're all paying for it too. So the idea that somehow it's only affecting those poor people is myopic.
No, that's not what I said, is it?
Yes, it is. You just
no.
You just said it's a specific group of people. It isn't just a specific group of people.
No, I said the choice is down to the specific group of people. I didn't say the whole situation is down to a specific group of people.
It's always going to be an individual choice, no matter what you do. All right, so that's immaterial. Since it's always.
But that's what we were talking about at this moment in time. If you want to talk about the societal issue and the societal pressures, I can talk about that.
We are talking about that. That's what we are talking about. You're not talking about that specific person. All right, you're not. You're using a generic term. Okay.
No, if you listen to if we would take it just for a second and calm down for a second, what we were actually talking about was people's individual choices when they were on individual aspects of benefits. We weren't actually talking about the people on benefits.
Okay, well, no, you're not talking about an individual because you haven't mentioned the name. You haven't said Charlie, Fred, Mary, Joe, or
MC, if I say that there is an army veteran that has this thing, do I need to name Tom, Dick, and Harry to say that
Yes,
that army veteran is happening?
Because if you say an army veteran, you're talking about all veterans. You haven't put any kind of demarcation onto it.
So when I say that army veteran, that's not indicative of saying a singular or a group of people.
If you say that army veteran, then you'd better be talking about a specific individual that everyone knows who that of the army veteran is, who that specific army veteran is.
So if I'm trying to talk about individuals, I now have to know every individual's name that I'm talking about. I just want to clarify for a point of conversation.
If you're actually trying to talk about an individual and an individual making a choice and saying an individual doesn't choose these things this way, all right, and that this person is making a choice for this or that, you'd better be talking about a specific individual. If you're going to sit up and say individuals, well, that's a broader context. You're already putting that into a larger context and in a larger overlay. And when you start talking about people, and we're talking about a set of people, okay, you're no longer talking about an individual anymore. And you got to sit up there and take a look at how the difference between society pressures and societal pressures, because when you talk about welfare, so welfare is a societal program. It's not an individual program.
Agreed. Nobody here disagreed with you.
All right. But when you talk about the pressures then that society comes to bear, you go, no, that's an individual choice. Wait a minute here.
When did I say that the societal pressures that happen onto people are an individual aspect? When I was talking about this, when I was talking about the choices that individuals make while on that societal structure.
Well, but that's part of the problem is you've only defined a narrow aspect about that choice, because
I'm sorry that I wasn't broadening the conversation when we were talking about one aspect of a minutia of a conversation. I'm sorry about that, MC.
Trying to delve down to a minutia is one thing. Trying to come back with a societal fix or something is something entirely different. Now,
but I didn't. I never made any prescriptions of what society should do.
That's the overall tenor of this entire conversation, though, CSG.
Yes, but we weren't at that point when we were talking about aspects of what happens within the benefit structure. When we were talking about individual aspects or what we perceived individual aspects to happen within the benefit structure, we were classifying our examples of singular or very small myopic groups of people, were we not?
No, we were talking about what I was talking about. I can also speak to what specifically is. I was explaining the process. I was not talking about a specific set of individuals. I was talking about
I must have been confusing, because I was having a conversation with Doku, and I was presuming that Doku was talking more about the individual aspect more than.
You've made an assumption that Doku understands what he's talking about himself. What the hell's wrong with you, CSG?
No, okay, he's not mad. He's not mad, Dodge.
I'm the. Well, at least I'm not mad.
Ow.
So I'm the butt of the joke.
It's a joke. It's a joke.
I know.
But unfortunately, gentlemen, I do have to. The reason I got that like that was because I have to bounce out, guys.
All right, mate. You look after yourself.
I'll
see you tomorrow.
Yep. All right, MC. Have a good one, dude.
Oh, I didn't even get a chance to say bye. That's not fair.
No. You say goodbye now. He's probably still listening.
Fuck off, MC.
Why?
We're such a lovely bunch of coconuts. I love it.
Oh, yes. We're so polite. So, Doku, you're wrong. I don't know why, but you're wrong. So, go on,
we might as well have to change the title of the stream to just Doku's wrong about everything, and that's racist.
To be fair, I don't think you're wrong about everything. It was just when you were talking about, like, specifically what interests me and piqued my interest was when you were talking about the idea of suing gang members and gang leaders specifically. I was like, yeah, you're kind of missing the main point of what that legislation is supposed to be targeting. Now, you could still argue that it's a stupid idea, but the point wasn't to get them for crimes or anything. It was to go, well, if a foot soldier that we know has ties to this group and that group has a leader, Like when you talk about corporations, you can sue the corporation's leader. So why can't you do that for the gang members and then have the gang leaders control the gang members more because it represents them?
Well, the reason that I say it's a stupid legislation and it's completely ineffective is because we actually already have legislation in place for that. And it's called RICO cases.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they don't. There's not specific cases that are targeted for gang leaders. The legislation would have to be there for known associates, known affiliate ties.
The whole reason that RICO cases were put in place is to actually get rid of that exact problem. It's just it was used against the mafia, but it was to do that specific thing. Is like, we know you have ties to this person. Does this person have anything specific against them that we can actually hammer them and charge them with? No, but we know they have affiliations and associations with this. Therefore, it gives us an opportunity and an avenue to open up an investigation to this person, find something to connect the two, and then bring them to court and actually legally charge them under how our justice system is structured. So,
from what I've just, I had to admit, I had to quickly Google this. But from what I've just Googled, the RICO cases that you're talking about are to do with criminal legislation, are they not? As in to find minor minutiae to do with criminal cases to try and link people together.
More specifically, criminal investigation, but yes.
But the cases in which you're talking about suing people is to do with a civil case. So the legislation would be different, would it not?
Well, no, even under RICO cases, things that would fall under the statute of civil court would still apply. So
does it though? Because if you do something yourself, the civil court statutes apply. But from this actual legislation itself that's being put out, the new one, not the RICO, is actually specific stating if we know that you have gang ties, we can now go after the gang leader or the known gang leader, because now we can charge them with the social suing, as in the social cases.
Under RICO statutes, yes, you would be able to. And the reason it doesn't get used a lot is the same way that it was back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. I forget when RICO was actually put in place. I believe it was the 60s or 70s. But the reason it doesn't get used in these types of instances is because it's really intensive on resources. And when you do bring up a RICO case, you have to have a solid case. So yes,
yeah, because most of them are to do with criminal statutes, where this wasn't to do with criminal statutes. This particular legislation is to do with civil cases. So with criminal liability, civil liability of, say, somebody shot up a place, the actual bullets themselves are not what's being investigated. It's the criminal damage and the cost of the criminal damage that's being investigated.
Well,
the actual cost.
Gentlemen, one second. RICO came about in 1970. I just checked for you, mate.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I thought it was the 60s or 70s. But yeah, and this is the reason that I say Lori Lightfoot's idea of we're going to sue people based on their criminal standing. Like, that's dumb, because you could bring. It's the same reason that a lot of RICO cases have actually failed, is because this person we know they have known gang affiliations, gang ties. We know this is the gang leader, but the worst thing we can get them on is a parking ticket or jaywalking, something stupid. And essentially,
because you're still thinking about the criminal charges, where this legislation is to do with civil statutes.
Even if it's
for instance, if I could finish what I was saying before, you would not be going after somebody that is doing the criminal damage and charging them with the criminal damage necessarily for the civil court. It would be a case of, well, they've cost the county or the state 30 grand, so we're going to try and get 30 grand out of the actual crime boss.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
That's whether that works.
But it doesn't solve the problem.
But it does. But it will do, simply by the fact of the boss or the person who's in charge will go, I do not want to be begged and hounded, not necessarily needing to pay the money, because as Jensen said before, they could run away. But because that they are in charge, they are the known leader, if something happens where the city or state can go and charge the gang leader for criminal damage and get money off of them, then it's a case of it could then lead to other things like, oh, where did you get your car from? Where did you get this from? Where did you get that from? And other cases can then come forth from it. So they will just not want to have anything to do with it. So they'll end up paying the money and sending their gang members to not go shoot up places.
I just don't see how it's economically feasible by spending, let's say, $1 million and trying to sue some gang member for $30,000. That doesn't seem correct or feasible. It seems like.
Why would it cost $1 million?
I'm just throwing the number out there, but just to say that.
Yeah, well, I put down I'm just saying, I'm not being nitpicky. I put down a feasibly small idea of if something costs 30 grand because somebody got shut up, that's a feasible number. I could have quite easily have said, oh, it cost £1 million to fix a goddamn traffic light. But
Right.
do you see what I mean? It doesn't necessarily cost $1 million to be able to go and sue somebody.
Well, I'm just throwing a number out there because usually when for a criminal case, usually it's in the millions of dollars between.
And that's the difference.
Right. I'm just saying the prosecuting attorney is using all the state's resources to and lawyers to, gin up the the evidence and the court cases working long hours. I'm just saying that could be applied.
Of course, but civil cases don't need all of that. Civil cases don't need all of that. For instance, you don't even need to have a dead body for civil liabilities for a murder charge.
Correct. Yeah. You're right. And exactly. The preponderance of evidence is a lot lower in a civil case than it is a state murder trial, for example. Yeah, you're correct. I'm just saying it's just kind of, to me, it just seems like you're trying to sue, a guy that isn't necessarily a millionaire, that's a gang member. He's sort of like, let's say $100,000. That's what he makes criminally a year. I see. Believe me, CSG, I can understand where you're coming from. Is where, it's a start, and maybe you could perhaps, muddy the waters, making their criminal enterprise a lot harder to, prop up and keep working. But it just seems like, there's a lot of gangs, so you're going to sue every single gang. That's kind of of a gang of, let's say, Chicago. I think has 5-6 million people in the whole city, and maybe the surrounding the suburbs. It just seems kind of like a lost cause. Maybe it would work, but it just seems a waste of money.
There's another issue that CSG you kind of brought up, and you're correct about this. Yes, you're going to bring up a civil suit against somebody. What's going to end up happening is, the state is trying to get money out of somebody, but it's not, unless somebody really screws up, which there's the possibility. There's always the possibility that it could lead to further investigation and further cases, and you can actually really start addressing the issue of crime. But in the majority of these situations, I guarantee you this is going to happen. We're suing you for $10,000. Okay, well, I'm just going to pay it. Like, here's your $10,000. I'll just settle. It won't even go to court. And I'll say, well, where'd you get the $10,000 from? Well, I had a car, so I sold the car. I sold it for $10,000. Where'd you get the car from? It was gifted to me by my granddad. Okay, who's your granddad? Okay, does this guy have the car? Yep. These people,
you're forgetting about all of the paper trail that goes with that, though, buddy.
Yeah, and the thing is, these people have been doing this for a long time. Do you think they already have established, these things have happened before. This has already been a thing for a very long time. Yes, there's an established paper trail. If it was that easy to just take actual known criminals off the street, simply saying, well, we're going to sue you, is not going to get them off the street, nor is it going to stop crime. They're going to use the same tactics that they've used over and over and over again. At the end of the day, no, they very easily can.
The reason why they can't is simply because, let's say, for instance, you're saying that they're laundering money, for instance, and they're using drug money to be able to get through this and get through that. You'd be able to trace what the numbers are on the notes, for instance, if they were to do with criminal cases, if they weren't already washed. But
CSG, they don't need to use drug money. They don't need to use undocumented sources of revenue.
That's one aspect. One aspect.
CSG, what I'm trying to tell you is that this essentially is only going to be an excuse for the state to get more money from people who are criminal, but it's not going, or who owe the state money.
When it targets the actual bosses, the legislation is to target the bosses.
And how are they going to do that?
Because they know who the known leaders are.
Then why aren't they up?
Because of evidence for criminal cases is much higher than civil cases.
True. Yeah, she has a point there.
Yeah, but do you think that bringing a civil case against someone who's just going to pay off the fact that, oh, I sued you, where'd you get the money from? I own a business.
I don't know. Tax evasion seemed to work really badly for Al Capone.
I knew that was coming. I just want to say, I knew the Al Capone connection was going to be said by at least one person.
It's the obvious and the most evidential aspect of trying to look for something to get to something else. Remember, it is a way of getting your claws into them, if you want to use that as an analogy, to let them know that you're looking at them, that you're following them. If they can't pay using proper money and they use assets, you can go and search their house. Yes, they probably will stash everything, and that's absolutely going to happen. but that's going to stop them from being able to work properly. That's going to stop them from hiding everything. You're going to be able to watch them hide everything, take things away, because by Joe, they're going to be surveillanced. So they're either going to find everything in the house, or they're going to watch where they've been stashing the stuff and then take it afterwards from a criminal point of view.
And
there are so many things that can happen from that.
And you don't think that these people who are running any type of criminal enterprise hasn't learned from that and found ways around the system? Because I guarantee you,
but this isn't the system.
I won't say how I know this, but I can tell you right now, CSG, that's already planned for. I know people who have.
How can being planned for civil cases that's only literally just been talked about for the last 6 months at maximum?
Because this has been done before in the past. It's nothing new. This has already been done. It's been a thing for decades. What they're doing right now, yes, it's high profile. Yeah, it'll put people on notice.
What's been done? Can you give me an actual point of where this has actually been done when they've targeted civil cases for criminals and criminal bosses?
You already just said tax evasion. That's a civil case.
Specific legislation that will go after bosses for what their minions do.
It's a federal legislation. Why do you think that people got caught up?
No. Listen to what I just said. Can you show me evidence of what you just said about that it has been done before, where they are targeting low-level people that have done criminal activities to then civilly sue the known gang's leader for what they have done beforehand?
Yes, it's been happening for a long time. It's been happening since the 50s when the mafia was still a big thing. They've made
RICO cases are not the same as this. We've already established that.
A lot of people get caught up in RICO cases because a civil suit got brought up to them in the first place. This is not new.
So you're proving my point then?
And I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying this is not new. And the fact that this is coming out is
So why are we arguing if we don't disagree?
I don't know, actually. That's a good question.
I didn't want to interrupt because you guys were enjoying yourself, but you're actually fighting to say, no, I agree with you. No, I agree with you. Guys, shake hands. We both agree.
We want to measure our penises. Leave us alone.
We enjoy arguing, damn it. Let us argue.
Do not make the joke about measuring the penis. I was involved in the stream where MC was explaining about the boy who measured his penis using a computer cord.
Don't remind. I've forgotten about that, and you just. Damn it, Jensen.
And because CSG is probably sitting there thinking, well, that doesn't sound too bad.
No. I know the case. It was in the Daily. I know it was in the Daily Mail. I know. I still read news. I don't necessarily talk a lot about it, but I'm still up to date.
I stand by my statement. He just wanted a higher upload speed. Sorry, Leslie.
I'm sorry.
Well, technically, wouldn't it be download? Because he would be ejaculating, so it would be depositing. So it'd be a download, wouldn't it?
Fair.
Correct. Yeah. That would be correct. I stand corrected.
Do you remember the second Nolan Batman movie where they put all those gang members on trial, and they had the one guy up there like, okay, yeah, I'll admit it. I'll tell you who's the leader of the gang. It was me. And they're like, no, you did an affidavit saying it was this guy. He's like, nah, he's just a stool pitch, and I was the leader of the gang. You can see that happening.
I'm Spartacus.
He's like, I'm Spartacus. I'm the leader of the gang. This guy's a stool pitch. He doesn't know what he's doing. I was in charge, but I was only in charge for like a little bit. And then this guy was in charge. I could see where you could try to, in a civil case, you're like trying to figure out who the leader.
Leslie, you muted yourself, dude.
Dude, you muted. Leslie.
Yeah, so I could say, basically what I'm saying is you keep going down the line like, no, he was the leader. He's the leader. He's a leader. He's a leader. I could see that, making this, really simple, $30,000, civil case against a gang leader into like $1 million where you could just prolong this, for over years and try to figure out who's the real leader and who's the damages should be applied to. I could see it.
And you gotta give some of the criminal organizations credit. They're actually a lot more clever than we think they are because they know how to gum up the system and misdirect. I mean, that's basically the only thing hiding them from.
Oh no, I completely not agree. If anybody thinks that criminals, and especially criminal organizations and criminal gangs, are stupid, all you need to do is go, well, they don't pay taxes and they get away from the government. You don't. Who's really the stupid one here?
It's a very valid point. Yep. When you think about it, it's like, I mean, they even managed to go into Trump's taxes and nail a few people attached to him for wrongdoings. But at the same time, I guarantee you, there's some random person in Baltimore who has a crew of like 10 people who's making millions of dollars, and the government doesn't even know what his fucking name is. I bet you money right now, and I know that's.
Oh, I agree, and I bet you it's gone through the Cayman Islands, Sicily, back through to the Ukraine, back through to Sicily, back through to the Cayman Islands, back to the US islands, back down to Chicago. Oh, Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. Yeah. I mean, it's not like I don't know half of what I talk about. I won't big up myself too much, but I do know a little bit.
Oh, that's the other thing that doesn't get talked about a lot is people think that, criminal organizations and enterprises is like, oh, it's just a bunch of, street thugs. No, a lot of people that engage in these types of activities don't necessarily do it because they want to, live the thug life, quote unquote. A lot of them actually do it because they're A, extremely smart, B, they know what they're doing, but their primary motivation is they get a kick out of it. It's like an adrenaline rush to them. So they want to be, they want that high. For them, it's not smoking crack. It's, I'm going to skirt the system. I'm going to see, catch me if you can, so to speak.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But I completely agree. And I think that all the points that I actually raise are valid points. And it's, should we say, hairs for the course. It's a case of we need to do something to curb the reality that's happening in Chicago. One of the ways that I think is a good way of doing that is by targeting, at the time, the known bosses for that area to be able to make them curb their foot soldiers' enthusiasm, if you will. And that's a way of negating that one without physically adding more cops on the scene, spending more money in places that have hardly any fucking money, and that type of situation. And it's a way of being able to boost the state's funding as well, because they can take it off the criminals that are in the state already. But agreed that there are definitely ways that it could be abused for the normal person. Oh, there's Tommy that lives down the road. He works for the Crips, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he works for the Crips.
Well, if I may, there is one way of actually dealing with the whole Chicago problem. You build a dome over it. We call it.
No, we're not nuking them. No.
I only want to nuke Paris. No, I'm actually okay with not nuking Chicago. Just we build a dome over it. We call it a Thunderdome, and we just lob criminals in there. If they survive more than a week, good luck to them.
I hope when I say this that I'm not actually going to get bombarded, because I have done on previous streams with other co-hosts, but we don't live on the fucking flat Earth. We are not making a firmament.
That we know.
Oh no.
Well, I will be bringing this to a close, gentlemen. We are coming up to an hour on from Doku's original plan of half an hour. But thank you very much, Lazo, and thank you very much, CSG, for coming on and giving your opinions. Is there any final words you would like to say? We'll start with you, CSG.
Yeah, I don't have opinions. I have facts. Now, fuck off.
Okay, then. Lazo, do you have any opinions?
I don't know. If you don't agree with me, eat a pile of poop. I don't know.
I'm totally okay with this. Doku, anything you'd like to say, mate?
Welcome to Clown World, and where do I get my refund? Also, buy Goidcoin.
Oh, necrosis is actually as good as tomato ketchup.
This is actually true. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming, ladies and gentlemen. I hope we managed to bring you some form of entertainment. And as said, don't forget, Goidcoin, the only thing that may save you. The world is going to crap, and it is what it is.
Buy the Jewish-backed coin.
Woohoo!